You know what's fascinating? The EVs that get the most attention on YouTube aren't always the ones owners actually recommend. Some electric vehicles got dismissed at launch, ignored by reviewers, or buried under Tesla headlines. But then something unexpected happened. Real people bought them, daily drove them, put 50,000 miles on them, and started telling anyone who'd listen, this thing is actually amazing. By the end of this list, you'll see which EVs went from overlooked to beloved, and why the reviews got it so wrong. 1. Hyundai Ioniq 5. Here's a test. Walk into any Cars and Coffee event and count how many people gather around the Ioniq 5 versus the Tesla parked next to it. The Tesla gets glances. The Ioniq 5 gets conversations. When this thing launched in 2022, reviewers praised it, but consumers yawned. Another Hyundai. Another electric crossover. Everyone kept waiting for the real EVs from legacy brands. Then owners started posting range tests, and the numbers didn't make sense. They were beating EPA estimates by 10 to 20 miles consistently. That doesn't happen with EVs ever. The 800-volt architecture means this charges stupid fast. We're talking 10% to 80% in 18 minutes. That's bathroom break fast, not let's get lunch and maybe dessert fast. Real-world road trips suddenly became less about planning around charging and more about just driving. But the charging speed isn't what converted skeptics. It's the space. The Ioniq 5 sits on a dedicated EV platform, not a gas car converted to electric, so the interior is bonkers spacious. The back seats slide back so far you could host a yoga class back there. The center console slides 5.5 inches, so the front passenger can actually reach the back seat passengers. Your kids can hand you things without you dislocating your shoulder. Owner forums are full of stories about people who bought this as their sensible EV choice and ended up genuinely loving it, not tolerating it, not accepting it as the practical option, actually loving the thing. That math changes everything. 2. Nissan Ariya. I can already hear the comments. A Nissan EV after the Leaf's battery problems? Yeah, I get it. Nissan's reputation in the EV space is complicated, but stick with me here. The Ariya launched quietly in 2023 while everyone obsessed over the F-150 Lightning and Rivian drama. Nissan didn't make a big deal about it, didn't promise to revolutionize transportation, just built an electric crossover and hoped people would notice. Most didn't. Then winter came. EVs across the board lost range. Tesla owners complained. Ford owners complained. Everyone lost 30 to 40% in cold weather. Ariya owners? They posted screenshots showing 20 to 25% loss. Still not great, but noticeably better than competitors. Turns out Nissan's thermal management system, the thing they fixed after the Leaf drama, actually works. The interior quality shocked people most. This doesn't feel like a $45,000 Nissan. It feels like a $60,000 Infiniti that forgot to put the fancy badge on. Haptic buttons that actually respond properly. Ambient lighting that's tasteful instead of tacky. Seats comfortable enough for 8-hour drives. One owner described it as the anti-Tesla interior. Actual buttons, actual materials, actual thought put into ergonomics. Range sits between 216 to 304 miles depending on configuration. That's a huge spread, and the lower number sounds weak until you realize the base FWD model is the one hitting 304 miles. The Platinum Plus AWD drops to 265 miles but adds features that make the price jump almost worth it. This matters more than people realize. 3. Volkswagen ID.4. A guy told me he bought an ID.4 in late 2021 because he couldn't get a Tesla for 6 months and needed a car immediately. He figured he'd trade it in once his Model Y reservation came up. That was 3 years ago. He still has the ID.4. The Model Y reservation? Canceled. When the ID.4 launched, reviews hammered it for laggy software and a confusing infotainment system. Fair criticism. The software was rough. Volkswagen had clearly rushed it to market. But while everyone focused on the screen problems, they missed what the car did well: everything else. The ride quality is exceptional. It soaks up road imperfections like a vehicle twice its price. Long highway drives don't leave you exhausted and sore. The seats are legitimately comfortable. Proper VW seats, the kind they've been perfecting for decades. After 6 hours behind the wheel, you're still happy to keep driving. Real-world range consistently beats EPA estimates. Owners regularly report getting 280 to 290 miles from the RWD model, rated at 275. That's backwards from normal EV ownership, where you learn to mentally subtract 10% from whatever the manufacturer promises. Volkswagen fixed the software issues through OTA updates. Not perfectly, some owners still grumble, but the core functionality works fine now. And here's the thing. Once you use a car for 6 months, you stop thinking about the infotainment and start thinking about whether the car fits your life. For ID.4 owners, apparently it does. 3 years of free charging at Electrify America doesn't hurt either. Is that worth the premium over cheaper options? We'll come back to that question. 4. Polestar. 2. Most people have never heard of Polestar. The ones who have usually think it's some boutique brand for tech executives who want something different from their coworkers' Teslas. Both assumptions miss the point entirely. The Polestar 2 launched as Volvo's electric performance sedan, sort of, and promptly got overshadowed by literally everything else happening in 2020. Pandemic. Lockdowns. Every EV announcement from major brands. It arrived, critics praised it, and then everyone forgot it existed. Except the people who bought them. Owner satisfaction scores for the Polestar 2 consistently rank in the top tier. Not pretty good for an EV. Top tier period. Above brands with triple the marketing budget. The driving dynamics explain part of it. This thing handles. Like, actually handles. It's firm but not punishing, responsive but not twitchy. It drives like someone who cares about driving set up the suspension, which makes sense because Volvo's performance division actually did. Take it through canyon roads and it suddenly makes sense why they called it Polestar, instead of just making it another Volvo. Range started rough. 233 miles on early models, but improved to 270 miles for 2024. More importantly, the charging curve is flat. It maintains higher charging speeds longer than most EVs, which means your 20 to 80% charging time is competitive, even though the peak rate isn't chart-topping. But that's not even the most interesting part. The build quality is legitimately excellent. Tight panel gaps, solid door closures, interior materials that feel premium without being flashy. It's Swedish restraint applied to electric vehicles, and apparently people really like that. 5. Kia EV6. Picture this. You're at a stoplight in your friend's Tesla Model 3 performance, feeling pretty good about those 3.1 second 0 to 60 claims. A Kia pulls up next to you. A Kia. You're not worried. Then the light turns green, and that Kia is gone. Just absolutely gone. The EV6 GT does 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. That's supercar territory from a Korean crossover that looks like it was designed by someone who actually understands angles and proportions. When it launched, people dismissed it as the Ioniq 5's weird-looking brother. Then reviewers actually drove it and couldn't shut up about how good it was. Then normal people bought it and confirmed everything the reviewers said. The 800-volt charging architecture, same as the Ioniq 5, means 10 to 80% in under 18 minutes. But the EV6 adds something the Ioniq 5 doesn't: genuine driving excitement. The GT model is properly quick. The regular models are still fun. Everything feels dialed in and purposeful. Real owners rave about the highway road trip capability. The adaptive cruise works smoothly. The lane keeping doesn't feel like it's fighting you, and the range holds up even at 75 to 80 miles per hour. One owner documented a cross-country trip averaging 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour at highway speeds, which is legitimately impressive for a crossover. Range varies wildly by model: 232 miles for the GT up to 310 miles for the base RWD. That's a massive spread, and Kia's not great about communicating which trim gets what. But even the lower range versions work fine for most people because of how fast they charge. And here's where most buyers get burned. They assume Kia means cheap and overlook the fact that this thing comes loaded with features. The window might not stay open forever. 6. Ford Mustang Mach-E. You know what makes this one special? It survived something most vehicles don't, being controversial at launch and still succeeding. When Ford announced they were making an electric crossover and calling it a Mustang, enthusiasts lost their minds. That's not a Mustang. It's a betrayal. How dare they? The outrage was immediate and loud. Ford pushed ahead anyway. 3 years later, Mach-E owners are among the happiest EV owners surveyed. The extended range models hit 312 miles EPA, and unlike some EVs, that number holds up in real-world driving. Owners regularly report meeting or exceeding EPA estimates in mixed driving. The premium AWD with extended range sits in this sweet spot where it's quick enough to be fun, efficient enough for road trips, and practical enough for daily life. Charging infrastructure makes a difference here. Ford's Blue Oval Network partnerships mean you have access to Tesla superchargers with an adapter. That's huge. Tesla's charging network is legitimately better than everyone else's, and now Mach-E owners can use it. Suddenly, your EV road trip anxiety drops significantly. The GT version is properly fast, 3.5 seconds to 60 miles per hour, but even the base models feel peppy. It's quick off the line, confident in corners, and stable at highway speeds. It drives like Ford actually cared about the driving experience, not just checking the "we made an EV" box. One thing separates this from competitors. It feels like a Ford. The controls make sense if you've driven other Fords. The layout is intuitive. Your mechanic knows how to work on the non-EV components. That familiarity matters more than people realize when you're nervous about buying your first electric vehicle. 7. Chevrolet Blazer EV. Here's the controversial take. The Blazer EV might be the most underrated electric vehicle currently on sale. Launch was a disaster. Software problems, charging issues. General Motors temporarily stopped sales. Reviews were brutal. The internet declared it dead on arrival. But here's what happened next. GM fixed the problems, owners started actually driving them, and the reviews from people who daily drive Blazer EVs tell a completely different story. Range on the top trim hits 324 miles. That's legitimately competitive. The base SS trim still gets 293 miles, which is more than enough for most people. More importantly, the Ultium platform charges quickly. Peak rates around 190 kilowatts, and the charging curve holds relatively flat through the middle percentages. The interior space is massive. This isn't just marketing. The Blazer EV is genuinely roomy. Backseat passengers get actual legroom, not theoretical legroom. The cargo area swallows luggage, sports equipment, whatever. It's sized like a real family vehicle, not a compact pretending to be practical. Handling surprised owners who expected typical GM crossover dynamics. It's planted, confident, and way more composed than it has any right to be. The low center of gravity from the floor-mounted battery makes it feel smaller than it actually is in corners. You're not carving canyons, but highway merging and lane changes feel effortless. That math changes everything when you consider pricing. After federal incentives, these start in the low 40s. For a vehicle with over 300 miles of range, fast charging, and legitimate space, that's compelling. The launch problems scared people away, which means there are deals to be had if you're willing to ignore the bad press. 8. Genesis Electrified GV70. Most people walk past the Genesis section at auto shows without stopping. The ones who do stop, they usually don't leave without a business card. The electrified GV70 launched while everyone was distracted by the GV60's funky design and the anticipation of the GV80 EV. It's the middle child of Genesis's electric lineup, easy to overlook. Pricing starts around $66,000, which sounds steep until you actually sit inside one. This is where luxury brands that have been doing luxury for decades show their advantage. The interior is legitimately premium. Nappa leather, real wood trim, ambient lighting that doesn't feel gimmicky. Genesis figured out something Tesla never did. People like nice materials and good build quality. Crazy concept, right? The driving experience shocked early adopters. This thing is quick, 4.4 seconds to 60 miles per hour, but it's the refinement that impresses. Silent at speed, composed over rough roads, confident in bad weather. It feels like a luxury vehicle that happens to be electric, not an EV pretending to be luxurious. Range sits at 236 miles, which is the weak point. For a luxury vehicle in 2024, that's marginal. But real-world owners report it matters less than expected because of how the vehicle charges and how Genesis structured the ownership experience. The buying process is actually pleasant. Service happens at your home or office. They treat you like you spent $66,000, not like you're an inconvenience. Owner forums are surprisingly active for a low-volume vehicle. The consistent theme? People love this thing, not tolerate it, not accept it as the best available option. Genuinely love it. That's what you're really paying for. 9. BMW iX. I can already see the eye rolls. A $90,000 BMW? How is that overlooked? Fair question, but hear me out. When the iX launched, the design was polarizing. That grille, it's massive, aggressive, controversial. The proportions are weird. It looks like nothing else on the road, and not in the wow, beautiful way. More like the what were they thinking way. Reviews focused on the styling, and most buyers moved on. Except the people who actually drove it. They discovered something BMW doesn't really advertise. This might be the best road trip EV currently available, not the longest range. That's 324 miles for the xDrive 50. Not the fastest charging, just the best overall experience for covering long distances. The ride quality is exceptional. It glides over highway imperfections. Wind noise is nearly non-existent at 80 miles per hour. The seats are comfortable for 10-hour days. Climate control keeps the cabin perfect without tanking range. It's all the little details that add up to a vehicle where you arrive less tired than when you left. Real-world owners consistently report exceeding EPA range estimates, sometimes by significant margins. One documented road trip showed 3.8 miles per kilowatt-hour average over 2,000 miles of mixed driving. That's exceptional for a vehicle this size and weight. The technology works without being intrusive. Adaptive cruise that actually adapts smoothly. Lane keeping that doesn't feel like it's fighting you. A heads-up display that shows relevant information without cluttering your vision. BMW's been doing luxury tech for decades, and it shows. So which matters more? Looking good in your driveway or enjoying every mile you drive? The answer might surprise you. 10. Mercedes EQS SUV. Saved this one for last because it represents something important. Sometimes the market gets it completely wrong. The EQS SUV launched at $105,000, and everyone collectively gasped. Who would pay that for an electric Mercedes SUV? The internet declared it dead. Sales projections were modest. Mercedes braced for slow uptake. Then something unexpected happened. The people who actually bought them became evangelical about them. This isn't just a good EV. This is Mercedes applying a century of luxury vehicle expertise to electric propulsion. The result is something genuinely special that most people never consider because they see the price tag and immediately move on. Range hits 285 to 305 miles depending on configuration. Not class-leading, but competitive. The charging speed tops out around 200 kilowatts, which is good, but not exceptional. On paper, you can find cheaper EVs with better specs. But specs don't tell the whole story. The EQS SUV does something most EVs don't. It makes you forget you're in an EV. It's quiet beyond quiet. At 70 miles per hour, conversations happen in normal voices. The ride quality is absurd. Bumps get filtered out before they reach the cabin. The build quality is Mercedes S-Class level, which means basically perfect. Nothing rattles, nothing squeaks, nothing feels like compromise. Real owners rave about the MBUX Hyperscreen setup. Yes, it's 3 screens spanning the entire dashboard. Yes, it sounds excessive. But it works. The passenger can watch videos, the driver gets clear navigation, and somehow it all feels cohesive instead of overwhelming. One thing that separates this from cheaper EVs, the ownership experience. Mercedes dealers that handle EQS SUVs know what they're doing. Service happens without drama. loaner vehicles are appropriate. You're treated like you spent six figures because you did. That matters more than people realize when problems inevitably arise. This vehicle got overlooked because most people never consider spending $105,000 on any vehicle, let alone an electric Mercedes. But for the people who did, owner satisfaction is absurdly high. They're not defending a purchase they regret. They're genuinely thrilled with what they bought. The EQS SUV proves something important. Overlooked doesn't always mean affordable. Sometimes it just means the market dismissed something without trying it. The reviews focused on price and missed the point. Real owners who daily drive this thing understand what that price actually buys. That's the whole lesson of this list. Sometimes you need to ignore the noise and pay attention to what actual owners say after living with these vehicles for months or years. Here's what this list really shows. The EVs that get the most YouTube views aren't always the ones owners actually love. The Ioniq 5 and EV6 offer incredible value with legitimate performance. The Ariya and ID.4 prove that slow and steady can win. The Polestar 2 and Genesis GV70 show that understated luxury works. The Mach-E survived controversy to become genuinely beloved. Even the expensive options, the iX and EQS SUV, deliver experiences that justify their prices to the people who actually own them. Which one would you test drive? Drop a comment and tell me if I missed any EVs that deserve more attention. Hit subscribe if you want more vehicle content based on what real owners actually experience, not just what the press releases promise. And remember, the best vehicle isn't always the one with the most hype. Sometimes it's the one everyone overlooked until real people tested it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.